What up YouTube? Hope y'all are doing well. So we are actually changing it up a little bit this week. This week we are in Nashville, Tennessee. We drove down yesterday for the Buffalo Bills versus the Tennessee Titans football game, so I'm super pumped for that. But this weekend, I want to do a little bit of street photography. It's been a really long time since I've done any sort of urban or street photography, so that is 100% the plan for today. One problem is though that I don't have any of my traditional street photography gear, so I wanted to pack as minimally as possible for this weekend because I didn't really want to record a ton. I didn't want to do a ton of photography. That wasn't primarily the intent of the weekend, but I definitely wanted to film this video. And so the only lens that I have for this weekend actually is the one that I'm filming on right now, the 16-35 f4 Sony lens. And so that is the lens that I'm going to be doing street photography with today. And so my question is the 16-35 a viable lens for doing street photography? I've never used it for that. In my experience and from what I prefer, I typically like to shoot on like a 50mm equivalent lens for street photography. So 16-35 is going to be a little bit out of my comfort zone, but we're going to see what we can do with it today. So my brother and I spent the first half of the day riding those Lime scooters all around town, and it was a blast. The weather today is absolutely beautiful. The problem with that though is that there's not a single cloud in the sky, and that oftentimes attributes to really harsh light in your photos, and it's not really pleasing to the eye. But today, I really want to take advantage of the fact that the light is so harsh. Because it's so harsh, I think that I'm going to be able to use the shadows that are casting off of buildings and things of that nature to create really cool images, particularly using the 16-35mm lens. Because it's so wide, I'm going to be able to take advantage of some of the architecture here and some of the shadows they're casting and potentially get an interesting subject or something like that in the photos. So I'm going to walk around and start doing some scouting, maybe go up onto a couple parking garages or things like that and see what we can do. So like I said, I barely packed any gear for this trip, so I didn't even bring my GoPro with me. Usually what I would do is strap my GoPro onto the top of my camera to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of what I'm doing. But rather than doing that, what I'm actually gonna have to do is kind of film the scene that I'm shooting at and then show you the pictures that I took within that scene. Alright, so I've been walking around for some time now trying to find like little slivers of light and where light is kind of bouncing off of buildings and creating interesting shadows. And I just found this really cool spot right up here where there's this little sliver of light. Hopefully you can see it right there. I don't have a flip out screen, but there's this little sliver of light kind of coming through one of the alleyways, and I'm trying to take pictures of like interesting subjects, maybe a single person or a couple or anything like that, walking through the scene where that sliver of light is. So I'm underexposing the image by like 1 or 2 stops, so I make sure to really retain the details of that bright area, and then I really don't care all that much about the dark area because I'm gonna want that to be really dark anyways for the final photograph. But this spot is pretty cool. I think I'm gonna hang out here for a little bit and see if I can get any interesting subjects just walking through the scene. Alright, wrapping up in this spot right now. I think I just got a solid photo. There was this one guy walking through the scene, and I tried to use some of the architecture in the background as well as part of the scene. I don't know if it really takes away from me trying to capture the guy walking through that light, but I thought it came out really cool. At least on the back of my camera, it looks super solid. So once I throw it on Lightroom and I do a little bit of editing, we'll see what I can do with it. But for now, I'm gonna keep walking around. I'm gonna start filming the scenes that I'm photographing and then show you the photographs that I took of those individual scenes right after that. So let's jump into it. Alright, so I've walked around for a bit and I just found this really cool parking ramp where you can actually stick your camera out these little holes right here in the wall and you can take photos straight down at the street. The way the light is coming down the street is making people have really long shadows, which looks really cool when you have a top-down view. And now particularly with this 16-35mm lens, I'm able to zoom it out to 16mm, and so I'm able to incorporate some of the side of this building, which actually has a really unique look to it. It's kind of in like these triangle or diamond shapes, and so I can incorporate some of that in the bottom of the image and then get people walking by in the top of the image with their shadows extended really long. The only problem is that there's literally nobody walking by on this specific street, so I'm going to camp this out for a little while, wait for somebody to walk through the scene, and then take the shot. Alright, so I'll give you my thoughts on the 16-35mm lens for street photography, and I need to preface it by saying that I know that this type of photography, what I've been doing today in the photos that I've shown you, kind of border the line between street photography and just urban photography. I know that there's kind of a fine line between the two oftentimes, and I think that these photos are kind of bordering that line. However, for the style of photography that I was doing today, I found this lens to be perfect for it. When I wanted to incorporate some of the architecture along with somebody walking through a scene, the 16 millimeters and those wider focal lengths were really perfect for that. And at the same time, zooming all the way into 35 millimeters is perfect for traditional street photography purposes and things of that nature. I know that a ton of street photographers, people who like genuinely identify as only street photographers, they use 35 millimeters oftentimes as their exclusive lens. I personally prefer, for street photography and actually taking like pictures of people on the streets and capturing street photography moments and things of that nature, I prefer a 50 millimeter lens. However, 35 millimeters for many people is the perfect focal length. So there were 3 shots today that I think were my favorite, just looking at them on the back of my camera. And the first one is the photo of the guy walking through the bright area in front of the AT&T building here. I thought that one came out super cool. The composition is really cool because you see the entirety of the building all the way up to the top, and then you also see him walking through that really cool shadow area right in the foreground. So I think that one came out really nice. And I also took a photo of the AT&T building, the same exact building, just a photo of that with incorporating a sun star in the photo, looking up with a little bit of a tree in the top of it, which kind of shows, it displays to me at least, the fact that today was a really nice day, perfectly clear skies, everything is still really green even though it's fall time, and things up north are getting a lot colder than it is here. And then the final photo that I liked was the one of that guy walking through that really small sliver of light coming through that alleyway, and I incorporated some of the architecture in the background as well. I think that those 3 photos next to one another, I have not seen them on my computer yet. I think that they're gonna come out really nicely as a photo set with one another. So I'm gonna put those right next to one another on the screen right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this weekend was not necessarily intended for a ton of crazy content creation. I'm super happy I got out to shoot some photos and to make a little bit of a video, but for the rest of the night we're gonna relax, and then tomorrow we're gonna head out to the Bills game.